At a time of rising tensions in the Mideast, world leaders are in New York City for the 79th United Nations General Assembly. And so much of the focus is on efforts to de-escalate the situation in Lebanon. U.S. officials are also trying to make progress toward a hostage release and ceasefire deal in Gaza. Meanwhile, President Biden made his final address as president this morning. He opened his speech by recalling the conflict that raged when he first entered public office, the Vietnam War. Here's a live look at the General Assembly. Iran's new president scheduled to speak any moment now. Eyewitness News reporter CeFaan Kim is live on the east side where protesters have also gathered. CeFaan?
Well, Sade, outside the UN, thousands are protesting the Iranian president. It is their ongoing struggle for regime change organized by the National Council of Resistance of Iran. There are thousands here again from 48 different states inside the UN. In his farewell address to world leaders, President Biden took a moment to reflect on his decision to exit the presidential race and tout his foreign policy legacy. This as conflict and turmoil rages on overseas.
I truly believe we're at another inflection point in world history. But the choices we make today will determine our future for decades to come.
In his fourth and final address to world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly, President Joe Biden sought to burnish his foreign policy legacy. But even though he came into office with decades of foreign policy experience, he leaves behind a mixed record. He made strides in strengthening alliances in Asia to counter China's influence. But two wars that started under his administration have no clear end in sight. Conflict in Ukraine continues, and the risk of an all-out war between Israel and Lebanon is increasing. Biden doubled down on support for Ukraine and said seeing an end to Israel's war with Hamas is a top priority before he leaves office.
I put forward with Qatar and Egypt a ceasefire and hostage deal. Now is the time for the parties to finalize its terms, bring the hostages home, and secure security for Israel and Gaza free of Hamas' grip, ease the suffering in Gaza, and end this war.
Biden also took a moment near the end of his speech to reflect on his decision to end his campaign for re-election, prompting this applause.
Let us never forget, some things are more important than staying in power. It's your people. It's your people that matter the most.
Outside the UN, meanwhile, thousands of Iranian Americans from across the country called for a free Iran as the nation's president addressed the General Assembly.
He is a part and parcel of the terrorist regime of Iran.
Young people, the youth, we want freedom.
Demonstrators denounced the nearly 200 executions carried out in just the last month since Masoud Pezeshkian took office and covered the plaza with faces of pro-democracy protesters who were killed.
For political purposes, and many of them were imprisoned during the uprisings in Iran. That's why they're getting executed.
Now, as for President Biden, both he and Vice President Kamala Harris are set to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky later this week at the White House. Harris will not be at the UN, and notably, even though Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu will be here, there are no plans for Biden to meet with him.